Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Sinner. So in this episode, you had an interesting conversation between Mason and Cora, where basically he's telling her to think more about what she's doing, because the fact is she won't open up to him about everything, and it's like you could tell she wants to, but I think she's scared of everything. She's scared of the truth coming out. I think she's afraid because obviously in this episode we found out about the whole heroin thing with her because of her arms and everything, and because Harry ended up telling Mason, which is like she asked him not to, which he did say that he couldn't, like there was a good chance that he wasn't going to be able to do it. At least he was upfront about it. At least he wasn't like, I won't tell your family, which I was kind of thinking he would, and they end up blabbing it to them, or someone else hears it from Harry and they ended up passing it along to the family. Nevertheless, I figured it was going to be something like that, because there's always a possibility that Caitlin would have been the one to tell him, because he would keep, as we can see, like he goes to Caitlin for information that he can't get from anyone else. But nevertheless, like Mason makes her realize, like, hey, like, this isn't just, put me aside. You don't want to do it for yourself. You don't want to do it for me. That's fine. Do it for our son, because your son, our son's going to grow up knowing the fact of the matter is you chose to plead guilty. You didn't even try to fight this. And the fact is you rather go to jail than be his mom. And I think that really hit her. But the fact is she still wouldn't open up. But it did seem, she started contemplating, like, what if we went the non-guilty route? And then her lawyer's telling her, the moment we do that, the fact of the matter is that's going to open you up to a lot of people. Like, yeah, you might go on trial. You can play the insanity plea, but there's no guarantee that's going to work. And even then, it's like they're going to dissect you. They're going to open up every little nook and cranny of your life is going to come up, and they're going to push it in your face. And even when the judge is asking, like, you want to plead guilty or not guilty, I was 100% sure she's going. I was like, nah, she's going to go non-guilty. Like at first she's like, I don't know, but I'm like, she's going to say not guilty, especially because she looks back and sees Mason. But the moment she looks past him, she sees her parents in the crowd, and she ends up going guilty. Took me by surprise. I was not expecting it. I was 100% sure she was going to fight this. Even though she was a little conflicted, I thought she was going to fight, especially seeing Mason. I'm sure that would, her son playing a role, being like, oh, she wants to be there for her son and everything. But it's like for her to go like pure guilty. I mean, it's understandable because it's something that Harry kind of taps into later on in the episode, that basically she blames herself for everything. Like this whole heroin addiction thing, which in actuality, it can't be a heroin addiction, because the fact of the matter is when she got brought into that, like, detox center she was in, she was well kept. It's not like she had been living on the street, so she had been living somewhere where she was well kept, and at the same time, like, her feet were clean, because it's like the way Harry puts it, like a junkie would start with their feet first before they moved up to their arms, and of course feet are clean. It's only the track marks on her arms, so things just aren't lining up there. And it's just like he's like, Cora was in such belief of what her mom said, her mom calling her a whore and her a degenerate, because that's something too her mom had never brought up in the conversation when Harry originally talked to her. It's like, why didn't you bring that up? Like, Cora, quote unquote, ran away at 23, which even Harry's like, she's 23, how is that really considered running away? Well, I guess it's because of the whole like family nature of, like, it seems like keeping people, I don't know, like there's a lot to that family, like on multiple levels of just like once again, the whole like chocolate thing is like, oh, you eating chocolate is a sin, and your sister's going to be like, where does that come from, but you see the extreme levels that they go through, and it's like at that point, that's when she disappeared, like 5 years ago, where apparently all this kind of like played out and kind of started, was when she disappeared all those years ago. But her mom never brought up the fact is that Cora came back clean like 2 months later, but she kicked Cora out because she was like, once again, you're a whore and degenerate and blah, 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 blah. So her mom, but that never came up in conversation. Once again, what's also interesting to me is the dad side of things. It seems like it's more so the mom, but I feel like the dad is very passive in this situation. Like, I feel like he doesn't stick up for Cora. And it's actually kind of an interesting thing, and maybe I missed it, but when you look at their family photos, it's mainly the mom. Maybe there was one with the dad, but it was like 3 photos back to back. None of them had Cora in it. They were all Phoebe, because you could tell on some level her mom hates her. And it's like, like the question is, was it before Phoebe was born? Was it after Phoebe? Like, I mean, definitely after Phoebe was born, but did it already exist, or was Phoebe's birth what really pushed that? Like, and why is the dad so content with it? Like the way Cora is being treated, the way, like, anytime there's anything that goes wrong, Cora's the one that gets punished. Like, there's that whole porn magazine. It's like, oh yeah, like I got that porn, like we found the porn magazine on the side of the street, and I read to Phoebe about sex and orgasm and vaginas and stuff like that, and they were punished for it. But to go be like like, having her pray to be forgiven, because it's like, oh, I'm a sinner for, I strayed from the path and I'm dragging my sister along with me. Even though the book originally belonged to Phoebe in the first place, because she took it from a doctor's office. So it wasn't even like Cora had anything to do with it. So I don't know. Like, it's so interesting to me. It does seem like right from the beginning, you're like, yeah, Phoebe's never at fault. It's always Cora, because even Cora's like, we found it. But the fact is, all the extra stuff that Phoebe, and more so than anything, all her mom was, instead of hearing, we found it, her mom is like, I found it and I dragged Phoebe along with it and I read it to her. What about the fact is that Phoebe wanted you to read it? Like, there's certain details that, like, I'm sure her mom just didn't pay notice of. And her mom wants to act like she's like, oh my God, she was always a problem child and stuff like that. It's like, what did she do that was so bad? Like, from the very beginning, from what we've seen so far in the show, you treated your daughter like crap. And it doesn't even seem like it might even just be Cora that's a little messed up. It looks like Phoebe might have been a little messed up too. We do see that she is dead though. She did die like a month after Cora originally ran away. So it's because it seems more so than anything like Phoebe is very rebellious in a sense of like, she kind of doesn't believe in this whole praying for God thing, because she's like, God's not listening. It's like, there's plenty of people, like there was a lady in the hospital or something that was dying too, that prayed every day and she still died anyway. So it's like, to her, it's like all these prayers kind of fall on deaf ears, even for Phoebe. There's even kind of this moment of, you do see it like, there is animosity between them, and they kind of, like Cora and Phoebe, they kind of laugh about it. It's like, yeah, I kind of ate a candy bar when I was younger because I was hoping you would die. And then Phoebe's like, I actually kind of wanted you to get sick at some point so you know what it feels like to be me. So it seems like, at the very least, I mean, I'm curious to see what their dynamic was like beforehand. But even last episode, I pointed out, like, her mom was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot you're out here. It wasn't until Phoebe pointed it out, oh, Cora's out there. So it's one of those situations of like, it seems like they did have each other's back to a certain extent. And it seemed like in this family, the only people they had were each other, because it's like, they definitely didn't have their parents, because it's once again kind of showing like her mom's more concern for Phoebe. It's like the whole like dad putting Phoebe back in her room. It's like, I need time with my wife and stuff like that. And there's also all these markings on her mom's arm and neck. I would assume that's just from her being sick, but I kind of like the moment she tried to cover up her arm made me feel like, I don't know, I feel like there was more to it than that. That's not just some illness stuff. That's something else entirely. But I mean, we really have to wait to find out, like, because it's like, she holds so much guilt because of her family. That's what made her, because she's like, oh no, I'm guilty, I'm a sinner, I'm a terrible person. It's like, so, I mean, especially with the way things have kind of progressed throughout the episode, it makes you realize, like, there's a lot more to that. Because, like, she was dreaming, and you have that blonde lady being like, yeah, give her another hit, it'll loosen her up, and then a foot on her chest kind of crunching down. I don't know whether that was her chest or someone else's chest, but it kind of made her have a panic attack. Like, combined with that, her being found in an alley, like, randomly, like, by a dumpster, before, being sent to that, dropped off at that detox center. That's why she got clean so easily, because it's, Harry ended up finding out at the end of the episode, it's like, you're not a junkie, you never hit, like, you've never, like, done anything yourself. Like, all those marks are from people injecting herself. It might not have ever been heroin either. She might have been drugged up with other stuff, but people just assumed it was heroin just because that's probably a nearby place where people who, I mean, maybe they found heroin in her system, or maybe she just accepted it was heroin. Either way, like, it could have just been some other drug that was put in her system, especially the way the episode ends, kind of showing that she was captured by it shows some guy in a weird mask being like, talking to Cora. So it's like, it seemed like she might have been held hostage, especially the way she was kept upkeep and the whole situation, because Harry was talking to one of the psychologists that studied her in this episode, and he was kind of she was like, basically Cora is reliving a trauma, that basically almost implying it's not even just the Frankie situation that she relived over when she attacked Harry. The fact of the matter is, that's just a repeat of something else. That's her, even that moment of Frankie was a repeat of another trauma. So what I'm thinking this all stems back to is she was captured by somebody, some like sociopath or whatever. Maybe the foot to the chest wasn't her. Maybe that was someone else. Maybe that was someone Cora was nearby. Maybe this guy captured a whole bunch of women. Maybe the blonde hair. It seems like she is involved in this somehow, because she's the woman Cora was dancing with and everything. It seems like Cora was very sheltered, so probably made her an easy target, because she was very like, okay with, she was free from her parents or whatever, so she was probably like living it up and, met the wrong person. This woman in particular, she's probably used as a way to draw people in. it might be that that guy is her significant other and that he does this type of thing. He captures women. She kind of acts as bait and draws them in and stuff like that, befriends them and stuff. And then these people become their kind of playthings. And when they're done, they just toss you out like trash. So maybe that's what, I mean, at least that's where my mind immediately goes to with this whole situation. So maybe what happened is that Cora saw him doing this to someone else after he had done it to her and many other people, and Cora just got tired of it, and that Cora attacked him that same way. And because it seems like she herself has fragmented memories. In that 2-month period, she was going from when she ran away to when she was found by Caleb in that near that dumpster. That 2-month period, it's kind of fragmented, and as we see, we're getting more and more depictions and pictures of it. We do know that little thing, that grayish design we've been seeing, is a wall. What she's been remembering and seeing in her dreams is a wall connected to that room that she's, whatever that situation is. Like, obviously we're going to be diving a lot deeper going forward, but it definitely is setting the tone of like she was held captive by some like sociopath or something. Now, whether that person's still alive or not, I don't know. Maybe she killed him and it just, the whole thing disappeared, or maybe that person's still out there on the loose. I don't know. The question is too, like, what does this have to do with JD? JD and Mason end up meeting later in the episode, and Mason's talking to him and everything, but JD's kind of like, oh, what did Cora tell you? And the fact is, Cora didn't tell him anything, and so JD starts laughing, and it kind of turns into a little bit of a scuffle, and they both get arrested. My brain starts kind of being like, okay, so what is it? Like, because there was a look on his face, like, even before, he has this kind of like, I don't know, look at him almost like he's dead, like he's just kind of lost and empty on the inside or something like that, even before Mason started talking to him. So, and it's almost like he got a kick out of pissing Mason off, because it's like, oh, you think you know something, you don't. So immediately my brain goes like, maybe JD was connected to this situation too, and whatever went down with Cora, maybe, you know, I mean, this is me kind of taking what I just said before and kind of changing a little bit. Maybe this was some sick, twisted, fun game that they had, but it went too far, and maybe JD and maybe the blonde woman didn't want things to kind of go as far as they did. So, I mean, for all we know, maybe the dude in the mask thing is JD, but nevertheless, things probably went further than they expected, and that's why they tossed Cora, because it was like, yeah, we got to stop this. Whether that's true or not, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But another thing that popped up in this episode too was basically, you know, you have Harry trying to make things work with Faye, spending time with her. I don't know what, you know, that's them hanging out with other couples, but they kind of talked to those snobby people at one point in the episode, and it, like, you know, Faye had kind of brought up the case and everything like that, and they're like, oh, what was it? Oh, she's a junkie, isn't it? Oh, la la. And then it turns out the whole situation, the guy being like, oh yeah, that's to be expected. Or was it heroin, or was it meth? It's one of the two. It's like, you know, it's people like them. He basically made it a class system type of thing of like, probably like the 1%ers and like the 99%, or like, you know, like whatever the case may be. He made it into a class thing. I was like, oh, people like them, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, even, and Harry kind of stepped, he's like, shut up, you don't know anything. Like, don't talk about Cora like that, because it's not like you know her. And Faye kind of stops him, and she apologizes later on, because she's like, I didn't know you were so passionate about it. It's like, I'm not. You know, to a certain extent, like, we still don't know why Harry's pushing so hard for the truth in this case. But I constantly said, like, it must be something related to a case in the past. But nevertheless, it's like, he doesn't see it as much, but I think it's because he knows there's more in the Cora story, that she's not a bad person in this whole situation. That I think in a way he feels like she's a victim. That's why he's pushing so hard on so many different angles to help her out and everything. So, but it was just kind of interesting to me that that conversation broke down like that, where it's just like, I mean, everyone has their own preconceived notions of stuff, and in this particular case we saw that, guys, and it's just kind of interesting to see how Harry reacted, how it like started pissing him off. And I guess, you know, as someone who seeks the truth, for this guy to run his mouth off about something that he doesn't know, I think it kind of irked that truth seeker inside of Harry. But, you know, maybe that's just me. Interestingly enough, the lady that he's kind of having that whole like affair thing with, it does seem like it is kind of a dominant thing. Like, he does like feeling like her kind of reducing him to putty, I guess, because she dumps a whole bunch of, I guess, lemons on the floor, and he has to kind of pick them up, and he's just kind of like, and we see that kind of later on. Don't know exactly what she was doing to him, but it was again kind of her just taking the lead and being dominating him, and it seems like that's something he's not getting in his relationship. So it's sad. It seems like even when he tried to make things work, but she did say like, oh, he'd come back, and turns out he did. So I'm definitely very interested to find out more about what Harry's whole deal really is. why he's pushing so hard, why, I mean, once again, everyone's got their own thing in this show. Like, obviously, once again, I brought it up from the very beginning. It's like, oh yeah, like Cora is the main focus, but there's other people, how this events will kind of play out, and then I assume affect everyone in different ways. You have Mason trying to find the truth. You have Harry trying to find the truth. Everyone's seeking something. And I think we're going to get all three perspectives, because it seems like their truths are probably all going, it might be a situation of like, once we kind of get their truths, all those truths will come together to become, well, one truth, Each one is seeking it for their own particular reason. Cora for herself, Mason for the life that he knows and that he's built with Cora, and for their family. For Harry, whatever reasons that he has to seek the truth. So it's definitely going to be very interesting going forward to see where all of this takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.